Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, the Rumpled One, coming to you on Sunday, December the 20th, the year's 2020. Let's talk trading. It's time for the weekly open and gap. And as usual, these videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine. And when we look at the week, we can see we've got some gaps here. Now, we've got a very interesting situation here on the London pairs. Last week, we gapped up huge and we didn't fill the gap. Well, this week, we've gapped down huge. So right now, we're in between two gaps. So we are going to have to wait and see which one fills first and if whether or not they both fill or if either one's fills. It's going to be interesting, but I would imagine sooner or later one or both of these gaps will fill. As for a bias, based on the gap, as you can see here, price opened and it moved up it opened right here at 3,400 and moved up 38.9 pips, and then it came back down. So you're just going to have to really trade what you see based on price movement. You can see here we're 16 pips above the low here, so we're still in the weekly rat zone. And the other thing that's very interesting, we're in the opening range here for the month. And you can see we touched the top of it and then it's pulled back down off of it. So that opening range for the month might prove to be some nice trigger lines here for the high and low breakouts. And for the month, we're 32 pips above the open. For the year, 106. And you can see this huge gap here once again. We are back into the inside bar range of 9 days ago here on the daily. You can see we've got some nice opportunities for inside bars on the daily. We've got a few on the weekly and a few on the monthly. So those of you who like to trade inside bars, you have some opportunities there. Daily range, actually right now the pound's above 100, which is kind of interesting. Only a little over 8 hours, actually 6 hours in the trading day. I'm looking at 8 o'clock here, but since the market opens at 2, that's only 6 hours, so server time 6:03. Once again, we've got two of the pound pairs over 100 pips so far on a Sunday evening or Monday morning, depending on where you are. Once again, you can see the huge gap. The pivot is here, so if you took that, if you faded the pivot, it would have paid off, but once again, you needed to take profit. Now we've reversed, triggered through the open here, through the short zone, and once again, that paid off. Oh, and for those of you using any of the templates that I send out, if you put the indicators in subfolders, not where they normally go, the templates can't find them. It's basically you're hiding the indicators from the template so they won't work. So don't try and get fancy, because if you do, you're going to have to redo all the templates. Yeah, you can go in and edit the templates if you want, but that's just a lot of work. I realize I send out a whole bunch of indicators, and you just, you can load them all, or you can just load the ones you want or need, but it's just too bad that MT4 doesn't tell you the last time an indicator was accessed. That way you would know whether or not it's being used. And you can see here on the rat zone, we're in the green rat zone, looking for price to reverse. But once again, right now, because of where price is between those two gaps, as always, you need to be careful, but I would say you need to be extra um, careful because price could just rocket either way. So you just really want to be careful. Or, usually rocket means up and tank means down. So it could rocket or tank on you in the blink of an eye. So, if you're up 5 or 10 pips and price is hesitating, you might want to take your money off the table because it could disappear in the blink of an eye. Here we're looking at the pivots. You can see we've got the weekly pivot right here at 1.3466. I think that's what it's telling me. No, it's 1. Wait, that's weird. Weekly pivot. Oh, that's a 5.8. Let me see if I can unbunch this chart so it's not so hard to see. And we got we've got a yearly low, weekly pivot 1.3466. And here we go. Once again, we can see the weekly pivot here, the weekly pivot from last week. So we've got a couple of misses here. See if either one of these get taken out. And we've got a weekly pivot from 6 weeks ago that's been missed. And on the daily, you can see the pivot here. You can see this pivot from 1, 2, 3 days ago has been now taken out. It hasn't even reached the wick zone, so we're way outside of the lower wick zone here. And when you're looking at the ranges, you can see even though the day is only 6 hours, we've got some, we're in some of the higher percentiles here, like for high minus the close. Still only 40% on the range, though price could stay within this range and it could easily pop out. Maybe it could go up to the 90 percentile. Once again, we have to trade what we see. Looking at the different charts, you might pick target areas where price might go and where you might want to buy from. For example, just looking at this daily chart, if price were to get below this line here, I would start to possibly look for price to leave this wick zone, because if you look back across here, you can see how many times price has gone back up from this level. What is that level? We're looking at the 33.18 area. So somewhere between, say, the 3300 area and up. So you can see here where price was stopped here, came here and came back to this point. It did continue down on that day, but then it came back up. So you can see here what price has been doing, just to give you some ideas of targets and possible trade opportunities. Oh, somebody was arguing out on a forum or something about whether or not some of these methods are profitable, and it usually gives me a chuckle because these methods have been around for over a decade when I created them and run the statistics, and there's some traders who are very successful at trading these methods, and then somebody will come along and want to do a little back test for a day or two, and then say how these things don't work. It's just, to me, it's just so funny how people are, because I guess a lot of times people come in with the bias, and then they say, oh, this doesn't work, and so they set out to prove it. So they have the confirmation bias. All they do is they look for evidence to support their theory, which is totally opposite of the scientific method, where you have a theory and then you try to disprove it, and you do your best to disprove it, and if you can't, well, guess what, then your theory must be right. So on the buy zone, I did a lot of rigorous work. Those of you, in fact, shout out to Mighty One. He says he likes to bin watch some of my old videos where I'm standing at the whiteboard and explaining some of these methods. Because with the buy zone, said I can't remember if there was some professor, I can't remember if it was in France or England. We were going over a theorem that I was using to prove, that the buy zone works. And like I said, I've proved that 4 different ways. And basically, building on that proof, creating the rat zone, from the simple observation of H. Reardon that, price is going to make a high and low and retrace that, and just, observing, looking at this pound chart, for just, days and weeks and months. And then one day just seeing that, some of these wicks are really big. And that's how the rat zone came about. And then, in the wick zone, noticing that, price usually doesn't close within the wick of the previous day. That was like, that's interesting. And then running a statistic showing how often price would leave that wick zone, and it was like, well, there's more opportunity. So like I said, I just find it interesting that, every now and then you get somebody like that who comes along and wants to, tell the world that, none of this stuff works. Meanwhile, the traders that are using it are making money. I guess, these people are like the guys that would tell a bumblebee they can't fly as the bumblebee, flies away, turns around and stings them. I just really do find it humorous, and that's why you don't see me arguing out on the forums anymore, because it's just a waste of time. There's people who are willing to learn, willing to practice, putting the effort, to put these methods and ideas to work for them. Because if it's working for some and it's not working for you, chances are it's not the method. That's like saying a hammer or any other tool doesn't work when other people are using it day in and day out. Saying there's something wrong with the tool. No, usually most of our problems, if you look in the mirror, you can find the root cause right there. I only have to laugh because it really is true in so many areas of life. It's so easy to blame things outside of us, but usually it's something internal, something that's between our ears and behind our eyes that are causing the problem. And it's just that we've all grown up with different experiences and different teachers, and we all have our different biases. So, and we have different beliefs too. And once again, if you have a belief, you might like you're going to look for things that confirm it. So if you believe the market is against you and you enter a trade and you lose, then you're going to say the market's against you, and then you might not enter the next 5 or 6 trades that would have been profitable, and then you enter the next trade and it goes against you again. Had you entered all the trades, you'd be up, but because of your bias and your belief, it caused you to not enter some of the trades. And then when you do, then you have an experience that confirms your bias. I mean, somebody asked me, when I showed that, they asked me how many losses I had in a row, what was my worst case, and I said, I don't know. So I think I ran it for the last 3 or 6 months. And at one time I had 15 losses in a row, and they said, man, that must have been really hard to trade after that. And I said, no, because I just knew that the streak, it almost had to come to an end. And quickly here you can see we hit that ATR, the open plus or minus 50% of the ATR. But fellow traders, that's it. I'm running out of time. So hope you have a profitable week. Just remember, never forget, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So get out there and drain the banks. This is the Rumpled One signing off.